for the love of God, get out of your own way. There's a reason why you have the callings that you do. It wouldn't be put in your heart if you weren't meant to pursue it. It's that simple. Life, it is short. We are on a planet in the middle of space, spiraling towards the unknown, the great unknown, and that is the only thing that's promised. The only thing that is certain in this life is death and change. The risk is not in using your voice, doing the thing you want to do, being judged. The risk is, what will it cost you if you don't do this?
But you're awakening already. Right? It's already happening. That's why you're here and why you're listening.
Nothing is broken in your world. Nothing needs to be changed. Nothing needs to be different. And yet everything is constantly changing because it is the inevitable nature of that which is eternal.
What I've come to realize in this endless searching for answers is that there really are none.
If you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, then what do you have? You have an act, right? Instead of a life.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Figuring Shit Out. I'm Vanessa Fontana. I'm your host, and if you're new here, Figuring Shit Out is a collective undertaking on navigating confusion, coming of age, and a guide to those on their journey of inner awakening and self-discovery. I thought it was time to make an episode about this sentiment that I have really reiterated this season on the podcast, which is, I love you where you are, and I love you where you are going. A saying that I have been saying to myself over and over again. One that one day as I was staring in the mirror just came right out of me. One that has influenced a lot of conversations I've had with myself around what growth means to me at this point in my life, and how I look at change and transformation as an act of love and not an act of escape. This episode, I want to talk to you about what it means to really initiate I love you where you are and I love you where you're going in your life, and how that so inextricably intertwines with the nature of control, surrendering control, and trusting. All of this ties together in my mind, this beautiful becoming of spring, seeing daffodils start to sprout out of the ground, seeing the weather start to change, seeing the weather almost get shy as it starts to change, as well as this awakening that I had recently about the ways in which control keeps us from allowing our blessings, the ways in which we need to know, we need to be certain, we need to follow the right path, the right thing, we need to be right, how that keeps us from our heart's yearning, how when we know something is right for us, we know it so deeply, but we talk ourselves right out of it because of this world that has given us so much noise to internalize, and how stripping away that noise is a constant reclamation of ourself, of our autonomy, and of our well-being. How willing are you to deepen and root into who you want to be? I'm going to kick this episode off with something that I wrote, and it is called I love you where you are and I love you where you are going. And it is a true meditation on spring coming, how nature models this cyclic rhythm of everything happening in its own perfect and divine time. How this sentiment of I love you where you are and I love you where you're going has been so powerful in my life, how it has transformed the way that I look at everything, and how we are all connected in this unknowing, which is a great pillar of figuring shit out, right? We're all figuring shit out, all of us, just in different points of our journey. Some of us think we have it figured out, and that's when life will humble you. So without further ado, here is the piece that I wrote to inform this episode. I love you where you are, and I love you where you are going. This is a phrase that came out of my mouth as I stared into my own reflection at the beginning of the year. Before this, I rarely met the girl in the mirror with such space. I tried to, but I was always hoping to see someone I was trying to become, and I had little room for the person that would show up to get me there, the person standing in front of me. But as I began 2025 with goals and dreams and buds ready to bloom, this time I vowed to do so, not out of an escape of this part of myself, but in a deepening of respect towards all of me, all parts of me. This phrase, repeated now in the bright light of every early morning, has taught me a lot about patience, a lot about hope, and a lot about trust. That contrary to my most popular belief, I am not responsible for absolutely everything that happens. It has showed me that growth is not about perseverance or strife or pushing towards as much as it is about allowing. That the insatiable need to know and influence how it all turns out is poison to growth, and I am not in control of how this goes, of how this ends, of who I meet along the way and how they may love me or hurt me, ignore me or respect me, and that I am in fact only responsible for 3 things: to love where I am, to love where I am going, and to release the clenched hand on the certainty that gives me the definitive answer of where that is. As I sit in the space between winter and spring, where wind chill still whispers and the sun overcomes its fear of being seen, I see nature mimic this sentiment. To sit in the space of something yearning to sprout requires patience, hope, and trust. We could plop ourselves in front of the budding tulips and urge them to come out of the ground. We could harness all of our energy and scream at the daffodils to make them sing, but no amount of force will stop the natural becoming of what has been sown into the surface of this life. It's moments like this where I stop and I realize it is all so much bigger than me. It always has been. This was all here before I was, and it will be once I am gone, and in that, what choice do I have but to love where I am and love where I am going? For none of it is promised, yet I'm here anyways. That thought allows me the space between myself and my life, knowing that if I've gotten this far, it surely couldn't have just been me that got me here. That maybe it was the collective will of everything, the natural rhythm of life and birth and death and cycles of what we sow and what we reap, and that maybe there is some guiding hand attuned to my rhythms in the same way that the leaves always know when to grow back and the flowers always know when to bloom. That through all of my cyclic rhythms in life, the dances of darkness and the snowy breeze of desolation, the thick and heavy snow upon my heart as it's cracked open, the boundless joy of realizing how far I've come, the seasons of sunshine and laughter, only to hit another wall of a world asking me to wait patiently to see what comes next, that I've been in the dance of communion with something greater than me all along. Isn't this where we all find ourselves at one point or another? Realizing that our job is not to understand how to live this life the right way, but to make enough mistakes and learn from them more than once to dampen the right soil so that sprouts grow in their own time. When you've gripped so tightly onto control that the forces of nature just want to teach you your lesson, a catalyst occurs. Life bites you back with a distinct surprise, a death, a destruction. You are shown that you can sure as hell try, but you won't ever really know or guarantee or be certain of a thing. That's how the saying goes, right? Make a plan and God will laugh and shoot you into a corner of lessons needing to be learned with love you haven't yet allowed. Your wells will dry up so that you can seek water elsewhere. Try as you might, you can bellow into the emptiness, but you will grow parched and tired and be unable to walk yourself into discovery. This is how we get in our own way. My relationship with control began when I realized at a young age that if the rug could be pulled out from under me at any time, I was sure as hell going to stand firmly on every corner of the rug and find out which one gave me the best chance of staying grounded. But this behavior has proved to be maladaptive because each time that rug was pulled out from under me, I was taught the same lesson, that it always could be. It always would be. And if I learned to trust that even when it was, all would be okay, then I'd save myself from the time and energy and years spent locking my feet into the ground when life was asking me to move. The need to know, to be certain, to be sure, it takes us away from the most powerful tool we have in navigating the world intuitively: discovery, curiosity, receptivity. It takes us away from loving where we are, for we must need to be somewhere else. And of course, if we are to be somewhere else, we are unable to love where we are going, because once we arrive, there's somewhere else to get to. When we need to know what is on the other end of a new beginning, we cannot allow the end to form in its natural cadence. We influence it with the chamber of our closed heart that demands an answer. We resist the very nature of life. We plop ourselves in front of the budding tulips. We scream at the daffodils and ask them to sing. We yell at our empty well of water, and all the while life has pulled the rug out from under us so that we can search for a new solid ground. It has given us a gift. we take it as a curse. And surrender, it requires patience, hope, trust. In surrender, there is a silent trust, a connected breath, a subtle heartbeat that begins to get louder with attention and intention. And in this breath, you sink deeper into the now and realize this is the place where all of the magic happens. Surrender is soft, sweet, and so quiet you'd almost miss it. And I think that is why we do. Us humans will do wild things to resist the discovery of right now. We will choose our drama over our dreams simply because it is familiar. We will hurt those we love because we don't know how to accept theirs. We will covet our alone time, practice avoidance, and call it protecting our peace when really we're numbing ourselves from our lives. And sometimes it takes driving someone you love out the door to realize that you don't actually want to be left alone, but you haven't yet discovered how to soften in the arms of another. Sometimes it takes loud, incessant gnawing and barking to quiet the cacophony of noise inside of your mind. Step beside yourself and observe the mess your unconscious triggers created. Sometimes we can only love ourselves where we are and where we're going when we've spent a lifetime trying to escape the now in an effort to secure a false promise of the then. And all the time, we can only see how deeply we are gripping onto control when we are forced to let go. What is your relationship with the need to know? What is your dialogue with desire? What gnaws at the insides of your brain and creates compulsions of must-dos and have-tos? What lies led you to believe that those traits serve you more than they hurt you? Herein lies the entry point to your darkest shadows and your deepest peace. At the end of it all, we end up in the same place, don't we? The space where time has no name and the breathing discuss the fear and potentials of being breathless. We are always hurling towards an unknown. We live on a floating rock in space, for God's sakes. The least we can do is let the tulips bloom and let the daffodils sing in their own time. The least we can do is listen more deeply, live more fully, love more boldly. The least we can do is look ourselves in the mirror and say, I love you where you are and I love you where you're going, and try to mean it. So that is something that I wrote, and if you're interested in reading it, it will be on my Substack, where I post every Friday something that I've written, or I try to post every Friday. It's not that consistent yet, but we're getting there. And it's a lot of my own thoughts around this sentiment. Whenever we are trying to embed new pathways into our brain, we have to realize and give ourselves the grace for the fact that we're fighting against a current that has been going in the direction it's been going in for years. And we are every step of the way learning how to flow with it and also learning how to create the gentle waves back to who we want to be. If you have even been doing self-development work for 5 or 10 years, you've been alive for at least half of that time, I would assume. And you are fighting against half of your life where you were in unconscious programs and patterns. For me, at least, I'm 25 now. I've been doing self-development work since I was around 20 intentionally. So for me, I am fighting against 20 years of behavior. And the intention here is actually not to fight it. It's to allow it. We resist our darkness, and in that we become it. We don't realize that in creating the space for it, we can ebb and flow, we can accept, we can allow, and we can let it be. When we invest our time, our energy, our resources into things that make us grow, when we put all of ourselves into a process of becoming, when we trust that when we begin something on the other end of it is something else miraculous, something unknown to us, something that we can almost see, almost taste, almost touch, but we haven't been able to actualize yet because of this necessary process of alchemy that must be taken in order to do so. When we invest that time into ourselves, when we invest our resources into ourselves in that way, life will reward us. Life will show us that the end result pales in comparison to the beauty of the process. And I have felt this so deeply when I quit my job and I went to yoga teacher training and I sat in the woods for 3 weeks, communing with other beautiful women who were learning about life, learning about themselves on a detour of life in a way, learning how to rest and be gentle and move and live in the space of their body. When I was in that space for 3 weeks, learning, immersed completely in this program of rebirth, I'm only now realizing how those 3 weeks are impacting every single step of the journey that I take forward. How that was not the journey, how that 3-week process of integrating and moving and learning was only truly the beginning. How that 3-week process was not the beginning, middle, and end, but how it was the entry point into understanding when you stop trying to control everything, when you allow something to just be done for you. So that question, what is your relationship with the need to know? What is your dialogue with desire? Because our desires at times show us not what we actually want, but what we think we need in order to be. How much are you trying to control what you do not know will even occur? How much are you trying to impose yourself onto the way that things have to be, should be, or need to be so that you can feel safe, so that you can feel okay? And then that goes back to your relationship with safety. What is your relationship with safety? What does it mean to you to take up space? What does it mean to you to have the right to be here, to exist, grounding ourselves into this earth, taking up the physical space of being here, being alive, being witness to everything that is around us and communing with it? And that is what surrender is. Surrender is not stepping back and doing nothing. Surrender is aligning yourself and following the process, being part of the process, but knowing that you're not in control of how it goes, of how it turns out, knowing that your job is to just sit, follow that intuition when it comes, learn to listen to that intuition and grow where you bloom, to find the places where you bloom and to not get mad at the soil underneath you for not being the place that you bloom. We can do this and we can practice this by feeling into the sensation of our bodies. How many of us are walking through the world completely disconnected from our physical experience? How many of us forget to breathe when we're talking about something that's hard for us? How many of us try to get the words out so quickly because we are just so scared to be seen taking up the space to speak? So many of us are constantly in this mode of escape, because when you realize that surrender is soft, surrender is quiet, surrender is a stillness, you might just miss it. You might just miss what it's like to allow magic to happen, because it's so easy and it's so natural that you're not used to life being that easy, to things coming that naturally. You resist it. You think, oh, there must be a problem with this. Just about creating enough space between you and those voices, realizing that you are the still point in between and that you are the one who gets to decide where you go. And so much about loving where you are and loving where you are going is getting the fuck out of your own way. For the love of God, get out of your own way. Stop finding reasons why you can't do the things that you want to do. Stop finding reasons that you can't invest your time or resources into the things that you want to invest your time and resources into. Stop thinking about how can I make this work, and start thinking about the ways in which it could. Start thinking about what will happen when it does. Start thinking about the shifts that will occur at the end point in your life when you embark upon whatever it is your heart is calling you to embark upon. The risk is not in using your voice, doing the thing you want to do, being judged. The risk is, what will it cost you if you don't do this? And we don't ask ourselves that question enough. I recently had coffee with someone who asked me the question of, how did you start using your voice? How did you get over the fear of being seen? How did you start sharing yourself? How did you do that when there's so much risk associated with it? And my response was so guttural. It was, what's the risk of not doing it? That's the question I asked myself. I didn't think about being judged nearly as much as I thought about what it would be like to be in this cage inside of my body for the rest of my life, never sharing my art, never sharing my words, never sharing myself. I knew how that ended up. I knew what it was like to hide, to bury myself, to be scared of being seen. And I knew where it wound me up. It wound me up in places that were safe and comfortable, but kept me gnawing at my own insides. Whereas the other way allowed me to express, allowed me the freedom. It was like I stepped into this light of freeing myself when I decided to start this podcast. Stop listening to the noise that exists around you and do the thing that your heart is calling you to do. By all means, no matter what it takes, do it. Do it because that's what you were here to do. That is what you were put on this earth to do. There is a reason why you have the callings that you do. It wouldn't be put in your heart if you weren't meant to pursue it. It's that simple. And when you start believing that, when you choose to start believing that, everything else starts to fall into place. Everything becomes easier. But the problem with this is that we don't like things being easy. We're not used to things being easy. And so we have these two choices all the time, to decide that life is working with us or to decide that life is working against us. These are the two choices that we have at all times. Life is working with us. We are guided. We are led. Or I'm on my own. Everyone's out to get me. Life is working against me, and I'm a victim of what happens to me. Those are really cut and dry, black and white, the way that we decide to go through this world. And sometimes we're, finding our way from one to the other. We find ourselves really aligned one day and not aligned another. And when we are not aligned, and when we find ourselves being the victim of our situation, having our pity party, what we have to remember is that that is simply a program. That is how we grew up. That is what was installed into the memory of our bodies. And the only reason that is coming up is not because we want to believe that, but because it's actually easier for us to believe that in the moment, because it doesn't take as much initial effort. But if you put the initial effort in to identifying the triggers that cause you to see yourself as a victim, and identifying the places in which you can take power and responsibility for your life, allowing yourself to sit in enough space and stillness with yourself, to have the capacity to choose, to sit at that crossroads of choice and choose to trust, everything will change. I wrote this in my notes app this morning. If everything is working out for me, if God is working with me, then everything that goes awry or doesn't work out is a blessing in disguise. It is not my job to know how it works or in what specific direction of my life I'm supposed to go in. It is my job to love intentionally and align with higher consciousness, align with love, align with joy and presence, and detach from the outcome of having to know how it works out. We always have two choices: to choose life is working against us or with us. When we choose that it is working with us, we flow through the currents of our experiences. We do not push against. We do not have to figure out. We do not have to strive or struggle. It is easy. We allow trust in and get out of our own way. And do we realize truly how much we are in our own way? I love you where you are, and I love you where you are going. That is the definition of allowing. It's the sentiment that you are not in charge. You are not in charge. Take yourself out of the driver's seat and put yourself in the back seat or the passenger seat. Allow yourself to be in this car on the way to a destination that's going to be great. You don't exactly know what the destination is going to be, but you know it's going to be great. Okay, it's forming as you go. It's a journey on the way there. You're going through mountains and you're going through beautiful landscapes. You're sitting in the passenger seat or in the back seat, and your job is to enjoy the fucking music. Your job is to sit there and say, wow, look at this beautiful world that has been crafted together, that has been created. Where did we come from? Your job is to sit and ponder into the trailways of discovery, of life, of death, of birth, of rebirth, and marvel at it all. To look at your own two hands and say, oh my goodness, I am a masterpiece. What am I to create? To sit and stare out the window and daydream as well as be present in your experience, knowing that the person in the driver's seat knows where you're going, knows how to get you there, that if there is a unsteady terrain, weather challenges, that person is skilled. That person knows how to get you through that storm. You don't have to hop in the driver's seat and drive for them. It's actually against your benefit to try to sit in a car where you're going to some unknown, beautiful destination. You don't know what it's going to look like, but you know it's going to be beautiful. And to miss the sights on the way. It is actually dangerous for you to crawl into the lap of the driver who knows very well where he's going and say, no, go this way. Or why are you driving like that? Or, oh my God, why is this mountain so steep? It's actually dangerous for you to do that. You're going to get in a car accident if you do that, okay? You are going to find yourself in the ditches if you do that. If you drive yourself into the ditches because you think you know where you're going and you don't allow the skilled person in the driver's seat to be the skilled person driving the car. If you sit back in the back seat and you yell at them, go this way, go that way, go this way, go that way, you just might miss all of the beautiful sights and scenery trying to get there so fast. What are you in a rush for? And then think about it like this on top of that. You've hired this person to drive this car for you. You have hired this person. You've made an agreement before you got in this car. You said, hey, listen, I just want a beautiful ride and I want to learn along the way. And I want you to take me where I'm meant to be. And I want you to make it enjoyable. And I want you to guide me silently and allow me to gently and softly know that you are there for me when I need you. But allow me the space to live this experience fully. And that driver agrees. And you get in the car and you start driving and you start playing and discovering all of the beauty of life. You're going through this tremendous growth. And then all of a sudden you forget. You forget that you made this agreement and life starts to get a little rough. The car ride starts getting a little haywire. And that's when all of that budding fear starts to arise. That's when you stop looking out the window and you start looking at the driver, asking if he really knows where he's going. Do you really know where you're going? Do you really know what's going on here? Do you really know how to get me there? All the while, the driver is just silent because you asked the driver to be silent. You asked him to just gently and softly remind you, not scream at you. So the driver will never, ever, ever impose himself on you and say, I am guiding you, because you're not going to listen that way. You're just going to doubt him. So all the while you're driving and you grow up and you learn that when you impose yourself, things go awry. But you can't quite see it. You can't quite see it because you forgot that you're in a car. You forgot you're on your way somewhere miraculous. You forgot to look out the window and see the beauty outside of you. And you forgot that this analogy of a car going somewhere, this destination, is actually just a symbol of life and the way that we commune or forget to commune with the divinity that is outside of us. We have two choices. And for some of us, sitting still next to someone else driving the car, something else being in control, sitting still in that space and enjoying it is harder. So much harder. I've really been sitting with my relationship to control, which has inspired this episode. I've had this opportunity to examine what it's like to surrender, to examine what it's like to sit in the space of stillness. And I'll tell you, it's not easy. When you're always going, when you are always trying to achieve something, when you are always on your journey, when you are even looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you where you are and I love you where you are going, sometimes you forget to mean it. And sometimes you forget to take a space to sit with all of it, to actually tune into the felt sensation of your body and how does it feel? How does it feel to be in my life right now? How does it feel to be doing these things that I am doing? How does it feel other than the dopamine hit that I get when I check everything off my list? How does it actually feel in my body to have a conversation with this person, to sit in the space of myself? How does it feel in my body to sit on the bed and read a book? Oh my God, to read a book instead of scroll on the phone or be on the phone or reply or constantly be in this dialogue with life that is forceful, How does it feel to take a step back and allow? And it's hard. It's been hard. But in this challenge, I've noticed softness start to arise. I've noticed what my breath sounds like again. I've noticed how it feels to do nothing and how fucking hard that is, but how instrumental, how crucial that is to magic happening, to the slowness of living life to form inside of us. How miraculous it is when we just slow down, and how beautiful of an opportunity that gives us to look at our decisions and say, which ones will allow me more ease in the long run? Maybe it's harder to believe that everything works out right now, but I know that trusting that has never gotten me in a wrong place. I know that when I look back at my life and I choose to trust that I've never made a wrong decision, that every decision I've made has led me to exactly where I'm meant to be, that I see that so clearly. So clearly. Think about that. How has every decision in your life led you to exactly where you are meant to be? How has every wrong turn, how has every quote unquote bad dream, bad nightmare of a situation taught you something more about yourself, has led you to this space right here, listening to this right now, feeling something in your body? How? Ask yourself that. Start to seek it and see it. Start to see that you are led, you are guided, and that there is a whisper, a voice asking you to do something at times where you have an urge, an excitement, a question of, wouldn't it be cool if? Listen to that. For the love of God, listen to the callings of your heart. If I could tell the world one thing, that would be it. Listen to the calling of your heart. Create enough space around that space. Sit with it. Get to know it. Peel back the layers of pain. Do the work that you have to do if you have to, but sit with the calling of your heart. And most of us don't have to do that much work to get there. Most of us know. Most of us are aware of what it is that we're meant to do in this life, of who we're meant to be, but most of us are just scared of taking up that space. Most of us don't know how to take up that space. Most of us have just been on this journey and this trail of choosing these programs that have been so unconsciously hardwired into us that we are trying to change them, but it's not easy. And it's not easy. You have to give yourself grace in this process. But know that it's possible. Know that when you decide that it can go more miraculously than you ever imagined, you open yourself to so much possibility. When you stop taking yourself so damn seriously, you start to see all of the beauty of simplicity. You start to see that everything miraculous is simple, even if it is complex, even if it is detailed, even if it has windings of beginnings and endings and trails of discovery. It has discovery. That is what makes it beautiful. That is what allows you to sit in the space of you and another, you and a budding flower, you and a sunny day. It is what allows you to hold the space, that center in your heart, that calling, that little whisper to listen. But it is quiet. It is quiet, and it gets louder the more that you listen to it. But surrender is soft. So quiet we almost miss it. And I think that's why we do. Because our world is filled with so much noise. So much noise all around us, so much stimulation. So much to keep us away from that little voice inside of our hearts. To embody the phrase, I love you where you are, and I love you where you are going, means to allow yourself to be who you are and also want to grow. To allow yourself to exist in all of your fullness right here as you are, knowing that that is the version of you that takes you to where you want to go. To not project this image of a higher self with unwavering trust and confidence that that's who you're supposed to be, that that's where you're going, and that's why you're alive. No. First of all, you're never going to have unwavering trust and confidence. Your trust and confidence will always waver, and it should always waver. What you can build is a knowing in yourself that no matter what, you'll be okay. What you can build is a knowing that you are loved, guided, and even on the hardest days, even on the days where your faith is shaken and you are insecure and you feel small, that even on those days, you will make it to the end of it. You will tuck yourself in bed and you will try your very best to give some love and compassion to the heart that beats for you, and that you will, if you can't do that, allow other people to love you. That's what you can know. That's what you can promise yourself. But this ideal of an unwavering trust and unwavering confidence, this projection of our higher self, our future self, being the one to swoop in and save us, while they are important in our journey, while it's important to have an image and a concept of who we want to be and align as them and show up as them, they are not who saves us. We are the one who saves us. We are the one who shows up every day and aligns ourselves to them. We are the one who makes the choices. We are the one who heals, who mothers and fathers and parents our inner children. It's us here, the person who looks back at you in the mirror, not some version of yourself in the future. It's you. So I love you where you are and I love you where you're going. It is an honor to that. It is an ode to that. And it is also an ode to saying, I don't know how this ride turns out, but I'm going to enjoy it. I don't have to know where I'm going to love where I'm going. I don't have to know where I am to love where I am. I just have to sink into the fullness of the experience of it all and have a little fun, for God's sakes, because this life, it is short. We are on a planet in the middle of space, spiraling towards the unknown, the great unknown. And that is the only thing that's promised. The only thing that is certain in this life is death and change. So we better get used to embracing those, to hold them close, allow them to bear us a little bit into the stillness of right now. If the only things that are promised are change and death, then wouldn't you want to savor this moment where nothing is changing except for the words that I'm speaking and the air that's around you and maybe the oxygen as it flows in and out of your lungs, or the walks and the steps that you're taking wherever you're going? If change and death are the only things that are promised, then wouldn't you want to savor that you are alive here, not exactly knowing how it ends, but knowing that it does? We live our lives like we're promised to live until we're 100, and we're not. We're just not. And that's to perspectivize the fact that if you zoom out of your body, if you zoom out of your experience, you'll probably find that you're taking a lot of things way too seriously, and that you are choosing the hard choice of working against the current just because it's all that you know. And if you invested your time, your energy, your resources into learning something else, my God, would your experience of life change? If you just allowed it to, if you just accepted help, if you just admitted that you needed it, if you just looked up into the great big sky and said, hey, driver, are you still driving? Try it. It just might surprise you. Before we end this episode, I want you to try this with me. If you have a second, to take a really big, deep breath. And as you exhale, I want you to sink into the moment of right now. Allow the muscles around your eyes to soften. Allow your shoulders to drop. Allow every space of tightness that you're holding on to just melt, to sink. And to feel the sensation of being alive. To sit in the quiet space of right now. To sit in the stillness and practice a sense of surrender. To breathe and to listen to this breath. To recenter and to reclaim. And to decide that that's a choice that is easy to make if you allow it to be. Listening to the beat of your heart, feeling it inside of you, seeing this moment for what it is and embracing this sentiment. I love you where you are. I love you where you are going. And not needing to know where either of those things are. Not needing to put expectations or pressures on the truth of your life for it to be true, but to just know that it is because it is. You are here now. Isn't that more than enough? Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for being part of this space as I learn, as I figure shit out along my journey. And if you liked this episode, please leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you are going to integrate this into your experience more and more, the ways that control has controlled your life and how you're going to let it go. Be sure to follow the podcast if you're not already and rate it 5 stars. It really, really helps in discoverability. Be sure to share it with a friend or share it with an enemy even. Thank you guys so, so much for listening. Thank you for holding space for all of my thoughts and all of my beautiful unwindings of language, words, poetry, essays. Just, you know how it is. I love you so, so much. I love you where you are. I love you where you're going. And remember, if you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, you don't have a life. You have an act. So go and live your fucking life. I love you, and I'll see you next week.
Feature. You gotta look for things to appreciate. You gotta find a reason to make it okay where you are. No. I've got to strive and struggle and try. That's what I've been taught. Growth and expansion is my quest. No, that's inevitable. Whether it comes easy or hard is the question.
The horrible truth is that it's an inside job. That if you're going to get that love and that respect that you've just that union starts inside.